Help a human? Brace yourself. Earth is going to war for you. The escape pod tumbled through the void, its hull scarred by plasma burns and its occupant barely conscious. Zarathek clutched her bleeding side as the emergency beacon transmitted its desperate signal into the darkness of space. The Cathara had found her homeworld. Her people were dying. She was the last of the Villani diplomatic corps, carrying crucial intelligence about the galaxy's newest threat. When the massive human vessel Determination picked up her distress signal, Zarathek expected another species to turn away once they learned of the danger following her. Every civilization in this sector had heard the whispers about the Cathara, the mechanical swarm that consumed entire star systems, converting organic life into fuel for their endless expansion. No one wanted to risk becoming their next target. Captain Sarah Martinez stood over the medical bay where the alien refugee lay recovering. The Villani resembled a cross between a cat and a bird, with silvery feathers covering her slender frame and large, intelligent eyes that held depths of ancient wisdom. Despite her injuries, Zarathek tried to sit up when the human approached. "You need to leave this system immediately," Zarathek whispered, her translator struggling with her weakened voice. "The Cathara are coming. They destroyed my world in less than a day. Billions of my people gone." Sarah pulled up a chair beside the medical bed. "Tell me about them." Zarathek's eyes widened in surprise. Most species asked how far behind the Cathara were, not for details about them. "They are machines, but not like any artificial intelligence we understand. They learn, they adapt, they grow stronger with each world they consume. Their ships can repair themselves using the debris of their victims' vessels. Captain, you must understand, no one has ever successfully fought them. The wise course is to run." Dr. Chen, the ship's medical officer, approached with a data pad, showing Zarathek's scans. "Her injuries are healing well, but she's exhausted. Whatever she's been through was traumatic beyond measure." Sarah nodded, then looked back at their guest. "How many Cathara ships are following you?" "A forward scout fleet. Perhaps 50 vessels. But Captain Martinez, that is only the beginning. When they find this system, they will call for their main force. Thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands. They turn entire planets into factory worlds." The human captain stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. "Zarathek, I need to ask you something important. If we helped you fight back, if we found a way to stop them here, would your people stand with us?" The Villani diplomat struggled to process the question. "Captain, I do not think you understand. My entire species' fleet could not scratch their hulls. What could one human ship accomplish?" Sarah smiled, but there was something cold in her expression. "You'd be surprised what humans can accomplish when someone threatens the innocent. Dr. Chen, how long until she's fit for light duty?" "Another day, maybe 2 if she rests." "Good." Sarah activated her comm unit. "Bridge, this is the captain. Set course for the nearest human outpost. Maximum burn." As the determination changed course, Zarathek felt a chill that had nothing to do with her injuries. She had expected the humans to run like every other species. Instead, they seemed to be heading toward the danger. In her weakened state, she wondered if she had simply exchanged one form of doom for another. The journey to Outpost Vigilance took 18 hours at maximum burn. During that time, Zarathek slowly recovered her strength and began to understand something unusual about her rescuers. The humans moved with purpose, but not panic. They prepared, but did not flee. Most disturbing of all, they seemed excited about the prospect of fighting an enemy that had never been defeated. Commander James Wright met them at the docking bay of the outpost, his weathered face serious as he listened to Zarathek's account of the Cathara attack. The Villani diplomat noticed something she had missed on the determination. The humans were not afraid. If anything, they seemed angry. "So these Cathara have been wiping out civilizations for what, centuries?" Wright asked. "Millennia," Zarathek corrected. They appeared in our galactic records over 3,000 years ago. Always the same pattern. They arrive, they consume, they move on. No one has ever found a way to stop them. Wright exchanged a look with Captain Martinez. Well, that's about to change. Zarathek, I want you to understand something about humans. We have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We've heard enough. The Villani diplomat felt her heart sink. Commander, with respect, you cannot possibly understand what you are suggesting. I have seen their ships tear through our strongest defenses like paper. I watched them harvest my homeworld's population while our military threw everything we had at them without effect. How many ships did your people have? Martinez asked quietly. Nearly 800 vessels in our defense fleet. They were destroyed in the first 6 hours. Wright nodded slowly. That's a respectable force for a single system defense. How many ships do you think humanity has, Zarathek? The question caught her off guard. In her panic to escape and find help, she had never considered the scope of human military capability. I assumed you were a young species, recently spacefaring. Perhaps a few hundred ships across your entire civilization? The two human officers looked at each other, and Zarathek caught something that might have been amusement in their expressions. Zarathek, Commander Wright said gently, humanity has been fighting wars for our entire recorded history. We've fought each other. We've fought nature. We've fought disease, famine, and every obstacle the universe has thrown at us. When we reached the stars, we didn't stop fighting. We just found bigger things to fight. Captain Martinez pulled up a holographic display showing star charts. The Human Systems Alliance operates 14,000 frontline combat vessels. That's just our regular Navy. It doesn't count our reserves, our system defense forces, or our merchant marine that can be armed for combat. The numbers hit Zarathek like a physical blow. 14,000 ships. Her entire species had managed fewer than 1,000 across all their colonies combined. But it's not about numbers, Wright continued. It's about what we do when innocent people are threatened. Every human who hears your story is going to have the same reaction we did. The Cathara picked the wrong galaxy to terrorize. As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding throughout the outpost. A communications officer rushed over with an urgent message pad. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting multiple contacts entering the system. Configuration matches Zarathek's description of Cathara vessels. 53 ships approaching fast. Wright smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Right on schedule. Signal all available ships in the sector to converge on this position. And send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we've found something that needs the full attention of the fleet. Zarathek stared at the humans in disbelief. You are not evacuating? You are calling for more ships to come here? That's right, Martinez said. The Cathara want to fight? They're about to get one they'll never forget. Zarathek, I want you to send a message to any surviving Villani ships or colonies. Tell them to hold on. Help is coming. As the first human defense ships began arriving at Outpost Vigilance, Zarathek realized she had underestimated these strange mammals. They were not running from the Cathara, they were preparing to make their stand. For the first time since her homeworld fell, she allowed herself to hope. The Cathara had never encountered humans before. They were about to learn why that was their first and final mistake. Outside the viewports, space began to fill with human warships, their weapons powered and ready. The mechanical swarm that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 millennia was about to discover what happened when they threatened someone under humanity's protection. The war for the galaxy was about to begin, and the humans were just getting started. Help a human? Brace yourself. Earth is going to war for you. The Cathara scout fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts, their ships reflecting no light as they moved in perfect formation toward Outpost Vigilance. Aboard their flagship, the collective consciousness known as Prime Construct 7741 analyzed the system's defenses with cold, mechanical precision. 47 human vessels had gathered around the outpost, a respectable force by organic standards, but insignificant compared to Kithara superiority. The collective had consumed over 600 civilizations. This encounter would follow the same pattern: initial resistance, inevitable defeat, harvesting of organic materials and technology. Prime Construct 7741 opened communications across all frequencies, broadcasting in every known language. Organic vessels, you harbor a fugitive who carries classified information about Kithara operations. Surrender the Villani designated Zarathek and withdraw from this system. Compliance will result in a swift termination. Resistance will result in prolonged harvesting procedures. On the bridge of the human flagship, Retribution. Admiral Rebecca Torres listened to the transmission with growing irritation. She had been fighting pirates and slavers on the rim when the emergency call came through. Now she found herself facing something far worse: machines that treated sentient life as raw material. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving the surrender demand on all channels. They want us to hand over the Villani refugee." Torres glanced at the tactical display showing the Kithara formation. Their ships were sleek and predatory, covered in what appeared to be adaptive armor plating. Intelligence reports from Zarathek suggested they could repair battle damage in real time and incorporated defeated enemies' technology into their own systems. "Response, Admiral?" the communications officer asked. Torres stood from her command chair and straightened her uniform. "Open a channel to the Kithara flagship. All frequencies." The transmission activated, and Torres spoke with the calm authority of someone who had never retreated from a fight in 30 years of military service. "Kithara vessels. This is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Human Systems Alliance. You have exactly 30 seconds to reverse course and leave this system. This is your only warning." Silence stretched across the void for several heartbeats. Then the mechanical voice of Prime Construct 7741 responded, tinged with what might have been amusement if machines could feel such things. "Human designation Torres. Analysis indicates your force possesses insufficient capabilities to threaten Kithara operations. Our collective has encountered 47,000 organic species. None have successfully resisted assimilation. You will comply or be consumed." 20 seconds, Torres replied calmly. In the medical bay of Outpost Vigilance, Zarathek watched the exchange with growing horror. The humans seemed determined to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. She tried to contact the bridge, but Commander Wright had sealed the station to prevent any interference with military operations. "Prime Construct 7741, Torres continued. "You've made two critical errors in your analysis. First, you threatened an innocent under human protection. Second, you assumed we were alone." The Kithara collective paused, processing this statement. Their sensors showed only the human ships in the immediate area. No additional contacts appeared on their scans. "Elaboration required," Prime Construct 7741 transmitted. Torres smiled coldly. "You've been fighting scattered, isolated civilizations for thousands of years, individual species with limited resources and no coordination. You've never faced a united enemy with unlimited resources and a very bad temper." She gestured to her tactical officer. "Signal the fleet. Execute Operation Righteous Fury." Space around the Kithara formation suddenly exploded with new contacts as human ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Not dozens of vessels, but hundreds. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, and assault ships appeared in a coordinated micro-jump that surrounded the Kithara scout fleet completely. Prime Construct 7741 systems struggled to process the tactical situation. 837 human vessels now occupied the system, their weapons powered and targeting systems locked. The collective had never encountered a response of this magnitude to a simple scouting operation. Analysis error detected, the mechanical voice transmitted with something approaching confusion. Human force projection capabilities exceeded calculated parameters by factor of 17. That's not an analysis error, Torres replied. That's what happens when you hurt our friends. All human vessels, you are cleared to engage. Remember the Villani. Show these machines what happens when they threaten innocent people. The first salvo of human weapons fire lit up space like a miniature star being born. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and kinetic rounds struck the Kithara formation with devastating precision. The mechanical ship's adaptive armor began to adjust, but the humans had prepared for this. Captain Martinez, commanding a squadron of destroyers, watched her weapons officer coordinate the attack pattern. Rotate firing frequencies every 30 seconds. Don't give their armor time to adapt. Target their propulsion systems first. If they can't run, they can't call for reinforcements. The Kithara ships tried to return fire, but their perfect formation had become a liability. Surrounded on all sides, they could not maneuver effectively without risking collision with their own vessels. Worse, the human attack patterns seemed designed to exploit weaknesses the collective had never encountered before. Aboard the Kithara flagship, Prime Construct 7741 experienced something unprecedented in its 3,000-year existence: uncertainty. The human weapons were not simply overwhelming their defenses, they were learning faster than Kithara adaptation protocols could compensate. Emergency transmission to primary fleet, Prime Construct 7741 commanded. Request immediate reinforcement. Human tactical capabilities require revision of threat assessment protocols. The transmission never completed. Human electronic warfare specialists had been monitoring Kithara communications since the first ship entered the system. As soon as the machines tried to call for help, their signals were jammed with prejudice. "Admiral," reported the communications officer on the Retribution. "Enemy attempting to transmit distress signals. All channels blocked. They're cut off from their main force." Torres nodded grimly. "Good. I want the galaxy to hear about this fight. But only after we're done with it. Tactical status report. 31 enemy vessels destroyed or disabled. Remaining ships attempting to break through the perimeter. No significant damage to human forces." The battle was becoming a massacre, but not the kind the Kithara had expected. Their ships, designed to fight disorganized resistance from inferior technology, found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by an enemy that fought with cold, professional efficiency. Commander Wright watched the battle from Outpost Vigilance's command center, where Zarathek had been allowed to observe. The Villani diplomats sat in stunned silence as the invincible Kithara fleet was systematically torn apart by human forces. "How?" she whispered finally. "How are you doing this?" "They adapted to everything my people threw at them." Wright glanced at the tactical display showing the last Kithara ships being destroyed. "Because we're not fighting them the way other species have. We studied your accounts, analyzed their tactics, and prepared accordingly. The Kithara adapt to individual weapon systems and ship designs, so we built ships that can reconfigure themselves mid-battle and weapons that change their operating parameters faster than their systems can adapt." "But the numbers," Zarathek protested. "You brought nearly 1,000 ships to fight 50 enemies. Most species would consider that wasteful." "Most species," Wright replied, "haven't spent their entire evolutionary history fighting wars. When humans decide something needs to die, we don't take chances. We bring everything we have and end the threat permanently." The last Kithara vessel, a heavily damaged cruiser, attempted one final desperate transmission before its hull finally buckled under sustained human fire. Prime Construct 7741's final message was directed not at its own fleet, but at the humans who had defeated it. "Analysis complete. Human military capability represents existential threat to Kithara expansion. Warning transmitted to all collective nodes. Organic species designation human requires immediate termination protocols." Then the transmission cut to static as the ship exploded in a brilliant flash of released energy. Admiral Torres studied the wreckage field where the Cathara scout fleet had been. 53 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, reduced to debris in less than 4 hours. But she took no satisfaction in the victory. The dying machine's warning troubled her deeply. All ships, form up for hyperspace transit. We're returning to Earth immediately. Command needs to know what we're dealing with. As the human fleet prepared to leave, Zarathek approached Admiral Torres on the observation deck of Outpost Vigilance. Admiral, what happens now? The Cathara know about humanity. They will come in force next time. Torres looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, an ancient and terrible enemy was preparing for war. Then we'll be ready for them. The Cathara have been bullying innocent species for millennia. Time someone showed them what real bullies look like. The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only the wreckage of the Cathara scout force. But across the galaxy, automated Cathara relay stations had received Prime Construct 7741's final transmission. The collective was already mobilizing its main fleets, preparing for a war against an enemy unlike any they had faced before. The machines had wanted to harvest one refugee. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Humanity was going to war, and the Cathara were about to learn why no one in their right mind ever wanted that to happen. Help a human? Brace yourself. Earth is going to war for you. 6 months after the destruction of the Cathara scout fleet, the galaxy held its breath. The collective had responded to humanity's interference with characteristic efficiency, mobilizing fleets from across their conquered territories. Intelligence reports suggested over 10,000 Cathara vessels were converging on human space, an armada larger than any previously recorded. Most civilizations would have sued for peace or attempted evacuation to distant systems. Humanity had done neither. Instead, they had declared total war. Zarathek stood on the observation deck of the human dreadnought Indomitable, watching the assembled might of the Human Systems Alliance prepare for the largest naval battle in galactic history. Around Earth's moon, nearly 3,000 human warships hung in formation, their hulls gleaming with fresh armor and newly mounted weapons systems. But it was not just the numbers that amazed her. It was the transformation of human society itself. In 6 months, humanity had converted their entire civilization into a war machine. Civilian shipyards now produced nothing but military vessels. Research stations had abandoned all projects except weapons development. Even merchant vessels had been fitted with combat equipment and pressed into service. Admiral Sarah Chen, who had replaced Torres as fleet commander after her promotion to Supreme Allied Command, approached Zarathek at the viewport. The human looked tired, but determined, her uniform bearing the insignia of someone who had been fighting the Cathara for months. "Scared?" Chen asked quietly. Zarathek considered the question seriously. "Terrified, but also hopeful. When my homeworld fell, I believed the Cathara were unstoppable. You humans have taught me that nothing is inevitable if enough people decide to stand against it." Chen nodded toward the fleet formations. "What do you see when you look at those ships?" "Power," Zarathek replied immediately. "Technology beyond anything my people achieved. Weapons that could crack planets." "I see something different," Chen said. "I see 3 billion humans who got angry when they heard about what happened to your world. Every person on those ships volunteered for this mission. They could have stayed home, stayed safe, but they chose to fight for people they've never met because it was the right thing to do." The tactical display activated, showing long-range sensor readings. Admiral Chen's aide approached with a grim expression. "Ma'am, the Cathara main fleet has entered the outer system. Sensor count is significant." Chen moved to the central command platform. "Define significant, Commander." 12,731 vessels. Admiral. They're maintaining standard collective formation, overlapping fields of fire, coordinated targeting, adaptive armor synchronization. Around the bridge, human officers absorbed this information with professional calm. Outnumbered 4-1 by an enemy that had never been defeated in open battle, they began final preparations with the same methodical precision their ancestors had shown at Thermopylae and Normandy. Chen activated fleet communications. All ships, this is Fleet Command. The Kithara Collective has arrived in force. They believe their numbers will intimidate us. They believe their reputation will break our resolve. They are about to learn that humans do not break. Across the human fleet, 3,000 captains listened to their admiral's words. On ships named Defiance, Retribution, Never Again. And remember Valani, crews prepared for a battle that would determine the future of organic life in the galaxy. The enemy has one advantage, Chen continued. They've been fighting scattered, desperate civilizations for thousands of years. But they've also made a critical error. They've given us 6 months to prepare, and humanity is very good at preparing for war. Light years away, the Kithara main fleet approached Earth system with the mechanical confidence of a force that had never known defeat. Prime Construct Alpha 9, commanding from a vessel the size of a small moon, analyzed the tactical situation with cold logic. 12,731 Kithara vessels against 3,000 human ships. The organic fleet possessed superior individual firepower and advanced defensive systems. But mathematics remained absolute. The collective's victory was inevitable. All units maintain formation integrity. Human vessels will attempt to exploit gaps in our coordination. Adaptive protocols are active. Begin harvesting procedures upon enemy defeat. The massive Kithara formation entered the inner system, their ships arranged in a sphere that could bring devastating firepower to bear from any direction. It was a formation that had crushed countless civilizations, perfected over millennia of conquest. Admiral Chen watched the enemy approach and activated a private communication channel to Earth Command. Supreme Command, this is Admiral Chen. The enemy fleet is larger than anticipated, but we are proceeding with Operation Final Answer. The response came immediately from Admiral Torres, now coordinating humanity's entire war effort. Understood, Sarah. Remember, this isn't just about winning. It's about sending a message to every Kithara in the galaxy. Show them what happens when they threaten innocent people. Chen closed the channel and addressed her fleet. All ships, activate Phoenix Protocol. Today we teach the galaxy that evil wins only when good people do nothing. Today we show the Kithara what humans do to bullies. Across the human fleet, something unprecedented began to happen. The 3,000 ships suddenly started multiplying. What the Kithara sensors registered as 3,000 human vessels revealed themselves to be elaborate decoys hiding the true scope of humanity's response. Stealth ships, cloaked platforms, and hidden weapon systems activated simultaneously throughout the solar system. Asteroid mining stations revealed themselves to be camouflaged battleships. Supposed civilian habitats dropped their disguises to become mobile weapons platforms. The real human fleet numbered not 3,000 ships, but over 15,000. Prime Construct Alpha 9 systems struggled to process this development. The collective had been monitoring human fleet movements for months, tracking ship construction and deployment. Their intelligence indicated exactly 3,000 combat vessels in the defense fleet. Analysis error detected. Human fleet composition exceeds calculated parameters by factor of 5. Recalculating threat assessment. But there was no time for recalculation. The human fleet struck with coordinated precision that turned space into a storm of weapons fire. Unlike previous engagements, this was not a battle. It was an execution. Human ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons cycling through frequencies and firing patterns too quickly for Kithara adaptation protocols to follow. Worse, The humans had clearly studied every available piece of Kithara technology, designing their attack specifically to exploit weaknesses the collective had never known it possessed. Admiral Chen watched the battle from the Indomitable's bridge as her carefully planned assault tore through the Kithara formation. Status report. Enemy fleet taking massive casualties, reported her tactical officer. Their adaptive armor can't keep up with our frequency modulation. Estimated enemy losses at 30% and climbing. And our losses? Minimal. The enemy is focusing on our decoy ships, while the real fleet maintains effective fire superiority. But Chen knew the battle's outcome had been decided before the first shot was fired. The Kithara had made a fundamental miscalculation. They had assumed they were fighting a single species defending their homeworld. Instead, they faced a civilization that had spent 6 months preparing for this exact engagement. Prime Construct Alpha 9, aboard the massive Kithara command ship, experienced something no collective consciousness had ever felt before: desperation. Over half their fleet had been destroyed in the first hour of combat, and the human attack showed no signs of slowing. "Emergency transmission to all Kithara nodes," the construct commanded. "Priority alert. Species designation human represents existential threat to collective survival. Immediate termination protocols authorized. Deploy all available assets." The transmission reached Kithara outposts across the galaxy, but the response was not what Alpha 9 expected. Instead of acknowledgement and reinforcement commitments, silence stretched across the communication networks. Unknown to the dying collective consciousness, human deep strike fleets had been systematically destroying Kithara infrastructure throughout the galaxy for the past 3 months. Supply bases, construction facilities, communication relays, everything that supported the collective's military power had been targeted and eliminated with ruthless efficiency. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Chen received a priority transmission from Admiral Torres on Earth. "Sarah, you can wrap this up. Deep Strike Command reports all major Kithara installations have been neutralized. This is their entire remaining fleet." Chen nodded grimly. The battle before them was not just the destruction of an enemy force. It was the end of a 3,000-year reign of terror. "All ships, execute final assault pattern. No survivors. The galaxy needs to know that the Kithara threat is finished." The last phase of the battle lasted only 30 minutes. Without support from their infrastructure and facing weapons designed specifically to counter their technology, the remaining Kithara ships were systematically destroyed. Prime Construct Alpha 9's final transmission was a simple acknowledgement of defeat. Collective termination. Imminent human tactical superiority confirmed. Warning to surviving nodes: avoid contact with species designation human. Then silence fell across the battlefield as the last Kithara vessel exploded in a brief flash of light. Zarathek stood beside Admiral Chen as they surveyed the wreckage field that had once been the most feared fleet in the galaxy. Around them, human ships began rescue operations, searching for any survivors among their own forces while preparing to salvage useful technology from the destroyed enemy vessels. "Is it over?" Zarathek asked quietly. Chen considered the question seriously. "The main threat is eliminated, but there might be isolated Kithara outposts scattered throughout the galaxy. Humanity will hunt them down, one by one, until every last collective node is destroyed. We don't leave jobs half-finished." The Villani diplomat looked at the human admiral with a mixture of admiration and slight fear. "What happens now? Your species has become the most powerful military force in the galaxy." "Now," Chen replied, "we go home. We rebuild. We help other species recover from Kithara attacks. And we make sure something like this never happens again." She paused, looking out at the stars. "The galaxy is a big place, Zarathek. There's room for everyone to live in peace, but if anyone threatens innocent people again, they'll learn the same lesson the Cathara did. As the human fleet began its journey home, carrying news of victory to a grateful galaxy, Zarathek realized she had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just the defeat of an ancient enemy, but the birth of a new kind of civilization. One that measured its strength not by what it could conquer, but by what it chose to protect. The Cathara had asked for help finding one refugee. Instead, they had awakened humanity's protective instincts and discovered that Earth would go to war for anyone under their protection. The galaxy would remember this lesson for a very long time.